Hi, my name is John Holland. I'm an art teacher at John B. Carey Elementary. My kids call me Dr. H, and my classroom is called the Learning Studio. Today we're going to talk about what makes an object art or not art. For example, what makes the painting behind my shoulder there, what makes that art, as opposed to what makes a banana art. We'll find out some more and learn about a couple different things, including some cross-curricular connections between sociology and art, and a variety of art movements and artists across time, from the 1500s to just last year. So here we go. I'm going to get my presentation up, so hold on a second. So the title of this lesson is called Making the Familiar Strange. I invite you to come into this lesson. If you're a dreamer, come in. If you're a dreamer, a wisher, a liar, a hoper, a prayer, magic bean buyer, if you're a pretender, come sit by my fire, for we have some flax golden tales to spin. Come in, come in. And our learning objective for today is the student will describe the difference between art and non-art objects. Connection between art and sociology happens all the time. Today, we're going to be talking about the concept or the theory of sociological imagination. Sociology is a combination of two roots, Latin socius, or meaning companion, and ology, meaning knowledge. When you look at, C. Wright Mills said that if you look at society as if it were strange, you can learn some new things. We're also going to be talking about the cognitive domain of creativity that includes imagination and originality, flexibility, and decision making. So let's talk about this painting. If you can click on the form that's listed with the additional resources and complete it. All you have to do is fill it out with what your opinion is after we talk about it. So what's familiar about this painting? I kind of doubt that there's anything in this painting that you haven't necessarily seen before. Like that it most likely is not alien. Let me see some of the things, describe some of the things I see. I see clouds. I see something that looks like water or a atmospheric horizon. I see some a stone wall, someone in a coat with a red tie, a white shirt, a hat, and an apple. But the question is, what makes what is it that makes this image strange? You probably have your own answers. I'm going to let you go ahead and think about that. The last question here is, what might this question be about? I'm sorry, what might this picture be about? Well, one of the neat things about art is that it's often made by artists to have multiple levels, which is why one of the reasons why it can reflect society. The title of this painting is Son of Man. So if you are looking at this painting and then you know the title, you might realize, maybe this is talking about that apple. Why is that apple in his way? So if you get a chance, please fill out the form below. It's important that when you're learning something that you express what you're thinking, otherwise it just slips away. Go ahead and pause the video and fill out your form. Here's another painting by Rene Magritte. This painting is, we're going to talk about this painting. So the same sort of questions. What is familiar about this painting? Well, it looks like it's some sort of a pipe and it has some sort of writing that I can't necessarily read on it. What makes this image seem strange? Well, at first glance, it doesn't seem that strange. Maybe if I figure out what those words say. Ceci n'est pas une pipe. That's French. It means this is not a pipe. Wait a minute. This is not a pipe? But it's a picture of a pipe. It is a pipe, right? Or maybe it's not. I wonder what Rene Magritte's saying in this, with this painting. This is not a pipe. Maybe he's saying that it's a picture of a pipe and not really a pipe. Or maybe I need to look for some more information. When I looked this picture up on the internet and I found it, I learned that the title of this painting from 1929 is The Treachery of Images. So if we think about that term, treachery, it has to do with tricking or lying. And this treachery of images, I wonder what he's trying to say. Think about it for a minute. Maybe talk to it with an adult or with your friends. So when we consider the cognitive domain of creativity, when we use flexibility to look at an object with a new perspective, we can unlock ourselves from how we see the world. Sort of like Magritte's picture. This is not a pipe. We can unlock ourselves because when we learn that what those French words mean, it makes us think, if this is not a pipe, what is it? Then, if we make a decision about how to share our perspective, we can create artwork with imagination and originality. If Rene Magritte had painted a pipe, but he hadn't written, "This is not a pipe," would it be the same painting? I kind of doubt it. And in a way, it's almost like a joke. If you show someone a picture of a pipe and then you tell them this is not a pipe, it makes us think, well, what is it if it's not a pipe? This is the one way that we create art versus non-art objects. We're not making value judgment as to whether an object is good art, only if it is an object that qualifies as art today. Let's look at something else from another perspective. Here's another piece of artwork called 1 in 3 Chairs by Joseph Kosuth. This artwork is in the Museum of Modern Art in New York. It includes a real chair, a photograph of a chair, and a definition of chair displayed next to each other. So you might ask, well, what makes this art? If that chair was in a restaurant, it would be a chair, but it's not in a restaurant. It's in a museum. So that's one clue as to what makes something art. Maybe it's the context. There's also, with this artwork, it has an image of the chair, and it has a definition of chair. I wonder if he's saying that they're all chairs, but they're all different kinds of chairs, even though they're really the same chair. Makes me think. This artwork's from 1965, during the conceptual art movement. The work of Rene Magritte first came about during the Surrealist movement from the 30s to the 50s. Here's an artwork by one of my students. She said, "It looks like it's looking at me." I shared this assignment, make something familiar strange. And this is the picture that she took and sent back to me. If it was a tree just out in the woods, it might just be a tree in the woods. But because she took a picture of it and sent it to me, now it's become art. And then to me, I can see that it looks like it's looking at me too. This is an artwork by my student Lauren. Lauren took this picture of just everyday objects around her house. When I first saw this picture, I thought, wow, what is that? It took me a while. She talked about how it was a light that she had taken with some perfume on it. But the thing that I really liked about it was it wasn't, not only was it something that was familiar, that was made strange, but it also had a composition that made my eye move around the picture. So, am I saying everything is art? Not necessarily. I don't think everything is art. But here we are, back to the banana. This banana was duct taped to a wall and it sold for $120,000. Titled Comedian by Maurizio Catalan. Now, this has got to be art, doesn't it? Well, let's think about what happened. If we, at some point, Maurizio Catalan must have thought, maybe this banana could be art. If I put it in a gallery, or I change the context from the grocery store to this gallery, maybe it would be art. But then he added another layer. This is one of the fun things about art, is that you can add more and more layers to something, either physically with painting, drawing, or with the title. He called it the comedian. Now, this is definitely saying something. Is Maurizio saying he's a comedian? Or is it referencing an old vaudeville skit in which somebody slips on a banana peel? I wonder, what does it take for something to be art or not art? Well, if we look at the world and we take something from the world and then we make some decisions about it, I think that this might be really the most important part. If we observe and make a decision and then share it with the world, so an object can become art, even a banana. But then we have something else. This is David DeTuna. He's a performance artist. Maurizio Catalan said, here's a banana, I'll tape it to the wall. This is art. And somebody must have believed him because they bought it for $120,000. Now, here comes David DeTuna. Let's see what he does.
Art performance.
What?
Art performance. Hungry artist.
It's a banana.
Yep. We respect Maurizio, but it's art performance, hungry artist. In the gallery. Thank you, very good.
So now we really have a dilemma. David DeTuna has just eaten a piece of art. Is it still art? Well, let's see if it meets that criteria that we already set. What did he do? Well, he found that banana, the artwork, sitting on the wall in the gallery, and he thought to himself, maybe if I change, is it art or is it a banana? And then he made a decision. He was going to break the unofficial rules of don't touch the artwork. Now, one of the things about performance artists is they're always breaking rules like that. But the main thing is, he made the decision to make it art when he said, this is performance art. And then he added even one more layer. He said it was titled Hungry Artist. The Hungry Artist is really kind of clever because he says it's a hungry artist, but also there is an old story or an old there's an archetype of the artist as being starving, a starving artist, as in artists never make money. So it seems like he turned that whole story on his head. So today we're going to try to look at some artwork. I mean, make some artwork out of something familiar, maybe food. This is some artwork by an Italian artist, Giuseppe Archimoldi. He was a painter for the court, and he made lots of religious and official court paintings, really nice portraits. But he also liked to make these humorous looking paintings that used fruit and vegetables in place of the person. So we're faced with this dilemma. What makes something art? For our project today, we're going to need to find some material, so you can pause at this screen if you'd like. Some sort of images, whether it's newspaper, magazines, or glue, magazines, and we'll need some glue and some scissors. Now, you may not have all of these things right now, so go ahead and get them. And you can use some optional materials too later. But let's just get started. So, newspaper or magazine, scissors, and glue. We're going to look at whatever we've gathered together with flexibility. We're going to make some decisions like what colors or what kind of objects we're going to select from our environment. And then we're going to put it all together and present it. Now we're ready to start our project. I have 3 short videos to show that will show some of the processes and thinking that can go on with this project. Okay, so now we're ready to start our project. Gathered the materials I need: stick of glue or some regular glue, pair of scissors, and just a piece of plain paper. I found an old piece of typing paper, printer paper that has some information on it that I don't need anymore. You can use anything. And I've also gathered together some newspapers. This is a newspaper that's basically put in my front yard once a week, and it has plenty of images in it that we can use. I've just made the decision to look for colors, so I'm looking for reds, for blues and reds, maybe some greens, and I'm also looking at some fruits, vegetables, different types of food, and my plan is to do something with this collection once I've went through the paper and gathered them together. It's a pretty simple process to collect your images. You just make, like I said, you make a decision about what you want to use. You use your best skills at cutting to edit or crop the image and just set it aside. My plan is to select enough color and paper to color this whole, to cover the entire 8.5 by 11 paper. I don't want any white paper showing on my artwork. If you were at school with me at Cary, you would know that in general, I don't ever expect your artwork and my artwork to look the same. We're all trying to do our own best work. If you're picking out images and maybe you have a fashion magazine or you have a Sports Illustrated magazine, your images are going to look different than mine, and you're going to be selecting colors or objects that are different. If you're looking at Sports Illustrated, you may decide to only use the colors in team jerseys, or you may decide to only use one particular sports images. Using fashion magazines, you may decide to do something only with people's faces. It's up to you. So once I've gathered enough materials, I will start on the project. I'm going to take a pause and collect some more images and colors, and then start back up when I'm ready to arrange things. The part where I'm working on the background. So after collecting a bunch of images and colors, I decided to go with a blue background. I decided I wanted to go with something that was darker and a cool color. I had collected a lot of blue, but not as much as I needed, so I went back and started collecting some more once I realized the material that I needed. And it's just an example of how, as you're working at artwork, it will sometimes tell you what it needs if you're listening closely. This project, I don't know how long it will take you. I don't know how long it will take me. The difference being between artwork and design. Often design has a specific purpose, and part of that purpose includes a timeline. Artists, when they're working, they will commit to having a show by a certain time, but and that will require an artist to make decisions about how and when they work. But if you're just making art for yourself, you never know how long, once you start, how long it'll take. And I always encourage my students to do the best work that they can. I have paintings that I've done that have taken me, a matter of an hour, 2 hours, and I have paintings that I've done that have taken me a couple years. I even have paintings that I've finished and then started painting again. So, don't feel like this has to be done by a certain time. Take your time with it and do your best work, and enjoy the process. I've really been enjoying finding these colors and trying to arrange them in a way that makes sense for my artwork. So the first part is just create some sort of background for your project that you will build your figure on, based on Giuseppe Archimoldi, the portrait artist and artist for the royal court. He was from Italy in the 1500s, and he did many traditional portraits and religious works for the court, but he also did the whimsical portraits out of food that combine the two types of artwork, still life and portrait. So as you work on this, keep in mind that not every artwork needs to be serious. It doesn't have to sit within one defined role or perspective in the art world. It could be still life and it could be portrait. The work really is finished when you've decided that it's finished, unless you're operating under some kind of time restraint. So now it looks like I have almost finished. Some choices I made were to make sure that all of my words were trying to go upside down or sideways, because I didn't want people to do too much reading into it. Our mind is somewhat pre-programmed to read things if we see letters, but if we turn them sideways or upside down, then we can cause our brains to take a pause before you jump into doing that. And now I've created a blue background. I'm going to start working on my figure. So one of the things that we're working on now is moving back and forth between looking at the colors and looking at the shapes in order to construct, at least what I'm doing is some sort of picture or portrait of a person. Found this cantaloupe, and then I realized that I wanted to have something similar color range. So I found this bun on a hamburger that was back in the newspaper. And I'm just trying to arrange my materials in a way that makes sense. For a while there, when I was arranging my parts, I had these two grapefruits, and I thought that they were going to go this way because that was the way I originally saw them. But then I changed my perspective and thought, well, what if they go that way? And then I realized that for me, that looked much more like eyes, and so I went that direction with it. I changed my face so that it was facing this direction, and now I'm just trying to fill out the space for the head for my portrait, and then I'll get into the details with the eyes and the nose and the mouth, etc. Okay, so this is my final artwork. You can see some of the decisions I talked about in the video. I used the blue background here and tried to turn all the words like upside down or vertical. There's the grapefruit I mentioned in the video, and I had the little slice here looks sort of like goatee, and you know, I kind of like it. It's not like I've never seen a grape before, but I've never seen a grape as hair. So tried to use some flexibility in how I looked at my materials. So, what are some of the things we learned today? We learned about how to tell the difference between art and non-art objects, applying flexibility and decision making to create something with imagination and originality. We talked about the artist Rene Magritte, painter from the 1930s to the 1960s. He was in the Surrealist movement. There's a lot of artwork out there that you can look at. One of his most famous artworks was The Treachery of Images. He's looked at Joseph Kosuth, who's a conceptual artist from the 1960s. His work is in the Museum of Modern Art. You can go look at that website. He did a lot of artwork that questioned our concepts of what is art. And then we looked at the artwork from last year at the Art Basel in Miami, the artwork of Maurizio Cattelan, the comedian from 2019, and also the performance piece, a performance artwork by David Datuna, and which titled Hungry Artist. And finally, we looked at the artwork of Giuseppe Arcimoldi, Italian painter, portrait painter, who combined the concepts of still life and portrait while he was working as a painter for the Italian court. We saw some illustrations and heard a poem by Shel Silverstein, and encountered the idea of sociological imagination from C. Wright Mills. Finally, we asked a question: Is it art? Can a banana be art? Well, that depends. It might depend on the context. It might depend on how we present it. But once we make that decision, we definitely want to commit. Thanks for joining. Bye.
So after collecting a bunch of images and colors, I decided to go with a blue background. I decided I wanted to go with something that was darker and a cool color. I had collected a lot of blue, but not as much as I needed, so I went back and started collecting some more once I realized the material that I needed. And it's just an example of how, as you're working at artwork, it will sometimes tell you what it needs if you're listening closely. This project, I don't know how long it will take you. I don't know how long it will take me. The difference being between artwork and design. Often design has a specific purpose, and part of that purpose includes a timeline. Artists, when they're working, they will commit to having a show by a certain time, but and that will require an artist to make decisions about how and when they work. But if you're just making art for yourself, you never know how long, once you start, how long it'll take. And I always encourage my students to do the best work that they can. I have paintings that I've done that have taken me, a matter of an hour, 2 hours, and I have paintings that I've done that have taken me a couple years. I even have paintings that I've finished and then started painting again. So, don't feel like this has to be done by a certain time. Take your time with it and do your best work, and enjoy the process. I've really been enjoying finding these colors and trying to arrange them in a way that makes sense for my artwork. So first part is just create some sort of background for your project that you will build your figure on, based on Giuseppe Archimoldi, the portrait artist and artist for the royal court. He was from Italy in the 1500s, and he did many traditional portraits and religious works for the court, but he also did the whimsical portraits out of food that combine the two types of artwork, still life and portrait. So as you work on this, keep in mind that not every artwork needs to be serious. It doesn't have to sit within one defined role or perspective in the art world. It could be still life and it could be portrait. The work really is finished when you've decided that it's finished, unless you're operating under some kind of time restraint. So now it looks like I have almost finished. Some choices I made were to make sure that all of my words were trying to go upside down or sideways, because I didn't want people to do too much reading into it. Our mind is somewhat pre-programmed to read things if we see letters, but if we turn them sideways or upside down, then we can cause our brains to take a pause before you jump into doing that. And now I've created a blue background, and I'm going to start working on my figure. So one of the things that we're working on now is moving back and forth between looking at the colors and looking at the shapes in order to construct, at least what I'm doing is some sort of picture or portrait of a person. Found this cantaloupe, and then I realized that I wanted to have something in a similar color range. So I found this bun on a hamburger that was back in the newspaper. And I'm just trying to arrange my materials in a way that makes sense. For a while there, when I was arranging my parts, I had these two grapefruits, and I thought that they were going to go this way because that was the way I originally saw them. But then I changed my perspective and thought, well, what if they go that way? And then I realized that for me, that looked much more like eyes, and so I went that direction with it. And I changed my face so that it was facing this direction, and now I'm just trying to fill out the space for the head for my portrait, and then I'll get into the details with the eyes and the nose and the mouth, etc.